Hello viewers and welcome to yet another live-action commentated match of Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. My name is Mitch and I am the Hive Tyrant. Today I'm pleased to present you with a very special game because we happen to see a species divided. On the left we have our seldom seen Dark Eldar Warlord Urien Rakarth, played by a gentleman by the name of Troels Berthelsen, and on the right we have the seldom seen Baharroth, an Eldar Warlord who happens to be a mobile specialist. He's played by Jarl Due. So as our players finish our setup in assessing our opening sequence of planets, planet number 1 is going to be Farron, which routes non-warlords. Planet number 2 is Barlas, which necessitates a random card discard. Planet number 3 is going to be Ossus 4, which steals resources. Karnath is going to be planet number 4, which triggers the battle ability of any other planet in play, and planet number 5 is going to be Iridial, which happens to heal. As the very first deploy action of the game, the initiative token happens to be to the right, controlled by Baharroth, and we see a Death from Above, a 1-cost event which happened to put the 3-cost signature army unit, the Baharroth's Hawks, into play at the 5th planet. They're typically a 2-command, 2-hit point unit with 0 attack value, but they happen to gain a +3 attack bonus when they're at the same planet as the enemy warlord. Quite curiously, we end up seeing a copy of Promotion, a limited 0-cost card affixed to that copy of Baharroth's Hawks, as if 2 command icons wasn't already enough, entirely uncontested, but we also happen to see a copy of the Crucible of Malediction put into play into Urien's HQ. Basically, whenever you play a torture event, it affords you the opportunity to exhaust that support, take a peek at the top 3 cards of either player's deck, pick one of those cards to be discarded, and then rearrange the remaining 2 in whatever order you would like. The Incubus Warrior is put out to planet number 3, and that's a great little command icon unit there. So, in just assessing our planets in regard to victory condition and all of that good stuff, it looks as though the earliest either player could win the game is potentially Iridial, whether it's through strong point icons or material icons. Very curiously, we actually see a copy of the Mighty Wraith Knight played out to planet number 3. That's a very curious choice, especially given that Farron is our first planet here, so if Urien can manage to win a battle at the first planet, that's going to give him the opportunity to rout that incredibly powerful powerhouse of a unit at planet number 3. So that's a 5/5 with 2 command icons. As soon as it enters play, you exhaust any non-spirit trait unit, so that Incubus Warrior is exhausted, but I'm very curious as to whether or not that investment is going to pay off for Baharroth here. But another Incubus Warrior to planet number 2, another Incubus Warrior to planet number 1. Both of our warlords are picking where exactly to send themselves. And what's very curious to keep in mind is that Baharroth, he's got mobile. His Baharroth's Hawks also have mobile, so he could potentially go to, say, planet number 2 to win command and then relocate himself to planet number 3 or planet number 1 to harass the enemy warlord or pursue a desirable battle ability, all sorts of different things like that. But Urien's going to go to planet number 1 entirely uncontested, which is going to potentially allow him to rout target enemy army unit. Baharroth ends up going to planet number 4. So, command struggles are resolved as thus. 2 resources to Urien at planet number 1, 2 cards to Urien, planet number 2. Planet number 3 is going to be 2 resources to Baharroth. Planet number 4 is going to be 1 card, 1 resource for Baharroth. Planet number 5 is going to be 1 card for Baharroth. So, Baharroth is going to have the opportunity to use mobile to shift himself about the battlefield, and the same thing goes with those Baharroth's Hawks. Looks like Baharroth relocates himself to Ossus number 4, and I suppose moving very quickly, we see the capture of the very first planet there by Urien, entirely uncontested, and that's going to be, for some reason, the Baharroth's Hawks routed, so curious choice there that it wasn't the Wraith Knight, but the Wraith Knight takes a swing, handily destroys that exhausted Incubus Warrior, so that's going to be 1 resource stolen thanks to Ossus 4, and that's going to be Baharroth bouncing back to his HQ, so that Incubus Warrior is in the HQ of Urien there, and for some strange reason, I guess he wanted that Baharroth's Hawks to be routed, so it's going to show up the same planet as Baharroth, and it can shift to wherever Baharroth goes. I suppose maybe he'd be able to kill it before it has the opportunity to attack, but that Mighty Wraith Knight is a little bit more dangerous in my opinion. But all the same, we do happen to see Farron has 1 red material icon. Our headquarters phase comes and goes. Both players draw 2 cards, generate 4 resources. The Mighty Wraith Knight, note that that's at a green planet, so perhaps that means Urien is going to pursue victory through those red material type icons. So if he doesn't win Barlas, no big deal. He'll probably skip Ossus 4, because of that Wraith Knight being so daunting there, and he'll probably go for Karrnath and Iridial in regard to winning battles at those planets when they do become the first planet. We end up seeing a copy of Archon's Palace put into play by Urien, which is absolutely fantastic. It can basically nullify the card or resource value, including all relevant bonuses, so that's going to be potentially fantastic in, you know, either card choking or resource starving Baharroth. And now, what exactly are we going to see? That Mighty Wraith Knight still sitting at planet number 2. We end up seeing a copy of the Void Pirate at planet number 5, so that's going to be a fantastic target for the Archon's Palace there. The initiative token does go over to Urien, so basically he's going to get the opportunity to attack first during combat, so the Incubus Warrior at planet number 1 is going to have the opportunity to attack for 3 prior to any Tau unit having the ability to attack back, so he could potentially kill off that exhausted copy of Baharroth's Hawks if Urien and Baharroth all go to the same planet. But in regard to appetitive battle abilities, I suppose Elwith is definitely nice. That's our new 5th planet. Its ability is basically to allow you to tutor the top 3 cards of your deck, pick any one of those cards and add it to your hand, and that's basically functioning akin to a Bizarro Crucible of Malediction there. So that's a fantastic target not only for the Archon's Palace, but it's also a great target to potentially copy or activate through Karrnath. A little bit of a curious misplay there. We saw a copy of Ion Rifle touch down on planet number 1. Must have been a little bit of a mistake, because we now see a copy of the Vior-La Marksman go to planet number 1, so much more appropriate, and given that Urien has the initiative token, that 2-cost 1/2 ranged unit there is going to have an opportunity to potentially kill the Incubus Warrior before it has an opportunity to attack in kind, and if Baharroth wins Barless, good for him. We see an ambush platform interplay, and that's now going to basically reduce the cost of any attachment deployed by Baharroth by 1 with no limit. That Ion Rifle that he gave away is now basically free. We see Baharroth's Hawks go to planet number 4, well, deployed to planet number 4, and then we see a very curious card here as well, the Craft World Gate. It basically allows you at, I believe, an action speed to basically just return a target unit of your own to your hand, so it could basically heal, it could basically allow you to redeploy that unit to a more preferential planet. Something like that Mighty Wraith Knight does have quite the awesome battle ability, and, you know, just exhausting all units that don't happen to have the spirit trait, but you do have to repay for that unit that you play, so that's incredibly expensive there, given the Wraith Knight's cost of 6. But we see Urien go to planet number 3, which is going to be Karrnath, the basically trigger any ability planet, and Baharroth goes to planet number 2. So in regard to command struggles and all that business, planet number 1 is going to be 2 cards for Urien, planet number 2 is going to be 2 resources for Baharroth, planet number 3 is going to be 1 card, 1 resource for Urien, planet number 4 and planet number 5 are going to be 1 card to Baharroth, and then 3 cards to Baharroth. But we see the Crucible of Malediction exhaust. I can only imagine that was a simple misplay. He must have meant the Archon's Palace. I can't imagine any player would want their opponent to get away with drawing 3 extra cards. It's not like this is Gen Con 2015 or anything. So we see the combat phase begin, and there's going to be some mobile unit reallocation here. Baharroth and the exhausted Baharroth's Hawks end up going to planet number 3, so they're going to be able to threaten Urien. We end up seeing a copy of the Rakarth's Experimentation, so this is a little bit curious here. This is basically a free event. You name a card type, unit, event, attachment, support. If your opponent can't discard a unit of the chosen type, then you deal a point of damage to their warlord. So whatever it was, whatever unit type he called out, that revealed a little bit of information there to Urien. And let's see, I suppose that Crucible of Malediction was erroneously exhausted. So now, yeah, there we go. We see the Archon's Palace correctly exhausted. Now we see that Crucible exhaust. It's going to be Ion Rifle, Bealtan Guardians, and Baharroth's Hawks as one of those cards. So he's going to have the opportunity to choose and discard any one of those. And if he discards that Ion Rifle, since he's not playing against Commander Shadowsun, it's not going to be nearly so dangerous. And, that Vior-La Marksman, you definitely don't want to give a ranged unit too much to work with. So, what exactly are we gonna see? Combat is gonna break out at planet number 1 and planet number 3. The initiative token is in Urien's hands, so he's definitely gonna have to try to retreat as quickly as possible. There's that ambush platform. We know full well that there is indeed an ion rifle sitting in the hand of Baharroth there, so he could, basically ambush that into play onto that ready copy of Baharroth's Hawks. We saw, God, was that a Soul Seizure, I believe, that was discarded? So it looks as though that Viorla Marksman's one shot was blocked, and we saw a Craft World Gate return the Viorla Marksman to hand. So that's interesting. I suppose instead of just allowing it to die, he bounced it back to hand, which is cool. So Craft World Gate doing work, but Barless, the battle ability, is activated. That random card discarded is an Earthcast Technician. So goodbye to one copy of Gun Drones earlier, goodbye to one Earthcast Technician, which is, I suppose a Mighty Wraith Knight Digger or a Ion Rifle Digger. It could dig for any drone or attachment, but we're going to see battle break out at planet number 3. Urien had better get the hell out of there, and indeed he does, because that ion rifle could have meant for a 6 attack shot at Urien prior to his ability to retreat. But that's going to be that copy of the Exhausted Incubus Warrior destroyed, and now Karnath's ability is going to trigger. It could be Eloith to tutor the top 3 cards, could be removing 1 point of damage from Baharroth. It could also, there we go, it's going to be Ossus number 4. So that's going to be 1 resource stolen from Urien Rakarth. So it's going to be 3 resources for Urien, which is enough for an Archon's Terror, unless there happens to be some sort of resource token hidden somewhere, and that's going to be 2 resources in total for Baharroth. We are going to see our headquarters phase come and go. Our new planet's going to be Aatrox Prime, which could fire into a player's HQ, or at an adjacent planet, deal out 1 point of damage. It's going to be 2 cards, 4 resources for both players. So the initiative token is now in Baharroth's hands. Our new planet is going to be Ossus 4. So we see Urien has 1 green, 1 red icon. The victory condition, need I remind you, is going to be as early as our current planet number 3, which is Iridial. It's going to be up to Urien here. Does he want to go for, okay. So we see a copy of Ion Rifle put out to the Mighty Wraith Knight. I can't recall if that, okay. I can't honestly recall if that can be an eligible target for war gear attachments or not. I would assume it cannot be. I believe it's an elite drone, not a vehicle. But in any case, we see that copy of Viorla Marksman replayed to planet number 1. Very curious plays in this game. We see a copy of Eldar Survivalist put out to planet number 5. It's great. Okay, so the reason why no one plays Eldar Survivalist is because of that 1 cost Bealtan Guardians. So Eldar Survivalist costs 2, Bealtan Guardians costs 1. The command icon value is trumped of the Eldar Survivalist, so that card and resource bonus are denied. Void Pirate goes out to planet number 3 by Urien, with the opposite deployment of, our 3rd or 4th copy of Baharroth's Hawks here. I believe our 3rd copy. So that's going to be down at planet number 3, but we see a Siren Zithlex also played out to planet number 3, so that's going to be deploying any army units subsequently played to that planet. So it's going to be 3 command icons at planet number 3 there for Urien. Okay, so there we go. I can only assume that's going to be a promotion played underneath that Eldar Survivalist, and that's going to be a significant bit of income there for Baller Urien over there on the left. So I suppose players are going to decide where to send their warlords. I don't see Urien going to planet number 1. Planet number 2 and planet number 3 are both incredibly dangerous for Urien based on the density of Baharroth's Hawks there. So I suppose Urien could maybe go to planet number 4, but he's going to be dropping off an Incubus Warrior wherever it is he goes, but it would afford him the opportunity to win command over that Void Pirate, drop off an Incubus Warrior to subsequently win command there. So wise move on part of Urien, if I don't say so myself, but looks like planet number 3, Baharroth, is going to touch down to potentially kill off either Siren Zithlex and do all that business, or otherwise harass Urien. The initiative token, need I remind you, is in the hands of Baharroth. But in doing our command, it looks like planet number 1 is going to be 1 that's going to be 2 resources to the right for Baharroth. The Archon's Palace exhausted. I have no idea what exactly it's targeting, though. Planet number 2 is also going to be 1 card, 1 resource for Baharroth. Planet number 3 is going to be 1 card for Baharroth. Planet number 4 is going to be 2 cards for Urien. Planet number 5 is going to be a grand total of 2 cards, 2 resources for Urien. So We're going to enter our combat phase here. Looks like that Mighty Wraith Knight and Viorla Marksman are going to be entirely uncontested at planet number 1, so that's going to basically allow Baharroth to activate that battle ability entirely unmolested and steal one of those resource tokens from Urien. We see mobility activates, so that's going to be the Baharroth's Hawks that's unexhausted, and Baharroth moved to planet number 4. What's that? Ambush platform activates. Ion Rifle drops down into play for 0. That is going to mean that, gosh, Urien had better have an Archon's Terror in his hand. I don't know if he has the resources for it, but if that Baharroth's Hawks can attack for 6, that is going to be just incredibly nasty there. So I suppose that was perhaps a little bit premature, in that we are still doing our battle at the first planet there. So, you know, like, let's say if Urien has an Archon's Terror, you probably wouldn't have wanted to give away that you could do that prior to your actually stealing that resource, because otherwise we could have seen the Archon's Terror and no opportunity to steal a resource, and that would have sucked. So, first planet is captured by Baharroth. Congratulations to him. I believe that's a copy of Searing Brand. It's difficult to see because of the glare, but that's going to be 3 unpreventable damage to target enemy army unit at the same planet as your Warlord, unless the player that you target happens to discard 2 cards, which I believe we did see. That Crucible of Malediction activates. Looks like an Altensar Rangers. Oh, an Ion Rifle, and Seer's Exodus is the card in the middle, so there we go. Okay, so it was another copy of Ion Rifle gone, so I believe that's maybe 2 copies of that card discarded. But Urien takes that swing of 6 to the face. Does he have a 2 shield icon card? Does he have a 1 shield icon card? I cannot quite tell what that was, but let's see how many damage tokens pile up. Urien is going to take 1 point of damage. Urien's going to take 3. Is it going to be 4 or 5? Urien only has 1 hit point remaining, and as soon as Urien is bloodied, I believe he loses his cost reduction for torture events. I can't remember if he happens to increase the cost of torture events, but Baharroth nicely bloodies our Warlord there, or almost bloodies the Warlord there, damages him, not bloodies him. Let me get my vernacular in order. And then I believe that copy of Incubus Warriors, I think there was one sitting at planet number 4, that was obliterated as well. So Elwith is going to afford Baharroth the ability to tutor the top 3 cards of his deck, put absolutely any one of those cards he would like back into his hand. And now we're about to go into our HQ phase, so guess what? No more new planets. It's about to get real. 4 resources and 2 cards for both of our players. Planet number 1 is going to be a red planet and a blue planet. So if Urien wants to win the game early, he's going to have to win at Karrnath here. He'd have to win Karrnath and Iridial, or either of those 2 planets plus Aatrox Prime in order to win the game. Or if we were to see Baharroth win these 3 planets in line, he could potentially take the game. But what exactly are we going to see? There are a lot of swooping hawks in play. One of them does have an Ion Rifle. One of them does have a promotion at planet number 1. Karrnath would be able to do the Aatrox Prime trick, which at this point could potentially bloody Urien. We see a copy of the Warlock Destructor played out to planet number 2, so it's a 2-cost unit, 1 command, 3 attack, 4 hit points. It happens to basically cost you a resource during your beginning of deploy phase. We see an Earthcast Technician touch down on planet number 4, and that's going to be allowing Baharroth to tutor the top 6 cards of his deck for any attachment or drone he'd like. Maybe he wants another copy of the Mighty Wraith Knight. Who am I to judge? But he gets to pick one, reveal it, and then add it to his hand. So is he going to reveal it, or is he being a secretive sir and not showing it to us? I think he may have broken the rules there, but in any case, it's going to be some deploy actions. It's a very unfriendly bit of territory for Baharroth to play out anything to planet number 2. We see a Bloodied Reavers go to planet number 1, so Urien dropping some serious firepower onto the table here. The Bloodied Reavers are going to be attacking for 4. As soon as a Warlord is present, they've only got 2 HP though, but check it out, the initiative token happens to be in Urien's possession, so if Urien, I suppose, well, I could see him go anywhere. I can only imagine Urien is probably going to be going to planet number 5. Just to hopefully trigger Aatrox's battle ability, potentially purge Baharroth's HQ, or just blast an adjacent planet. We end up seeing the Mighty Wraith Knight interplay. Was that bounced back to hand and then dropped onto the planet? I guess I I happened to miss if that was the effect, but God, that is a lot of resources to pay just to exhaust a Siren Zithlex and a Void Pirate, especially considering that the Mighty Wraith Knight itself enters play exhausted. I do not know if I agree with that choice. But to each their own. So Urien is going to pose a significant bit of threat to that first planet. I think if Urien sends himself to maybe the 5th planet, he'll be able to guarantee he'll get 2 cards, 2 resources there. Baharroth is probably going to be far away from him, and Urien's not going to want to be anywhere near combat since he's almost bloodied. And of course, if we could see a copy of Viorla Marksman with, say, an ion rifle or something like that, it would be a damn shame for Urien to cost himself the game. Urien, is that a planet number 1? Well, consider me surprised. I suppose Baharroth was maybe... Okay, so I was wrong. That was not a Craft World Gate aided Mighty Wraith Knight. That was a conventionally played Mighty Wraith Knight. So some colossal amounts of firepower here played out by Baharroth, but Urien is at planet number 1. He's got the initiative token, but, ooh, I guess that sucks. Those Baharroth's Hawks, they'll have to mobile away, because if they're not at the same planet as the enemy Warlord, they attack for absolutely nothing. So I think Baharroth was maybe trying to be clever in presuming that Urien would go to planet number 5, like I had suggested, but Baharroth and those units can't quite converge on Urien's planet there. So Karnath is basically going to be 1, and I guess, what would you personally do? Would you, I guess, wow, he chose to heal Urien. I'd have been sorely tempted to trigger, well, I guess Aatrox Prime could not have targeted Iridial, so it would have been either Eluith or Iridial, but combat is going to occur at Iridial. The first planet is going to be yet another red material icon for Urien. If he wins at Iridial, or if he wins at Aatrox Prime, that's going to be the game here. So combat breaks out. We see it looks like Siren Zithlex and that Void Pirate are just very handily destroyed. And that is a daunting bit of opposition there sitting at Iridial, so I cannot imagine that Urien is going to be trying to contest, gosh, Iridial next turn. He's allied with Eldar, so unless, Doom isn't doing him any good, he isn't going to have Warp Storm because he's allied with Eldar, so he could potentially just opt to go to Aatrox Prime and wall off that planet. I guess the earliest that Baharroth could potentially win the game at this point is going to be indeed Aatrox Prime, because he'd have to get 1 technology icon from Iridial, another technology icon from Eluith, and then a 3rd from Aatrox Prime. It's just not a lot of green strong point icons on the board. But as our players are in the process of doing some actions here, looks as though both of our players have returned to HQ. I suppose we've done our HQ phase. That was 4 resources, 2 cards for each player. Iridial is currently our first planet. We've got 3 incredible copies of the Baharroth's Hawks there sitting at that planet. Let's see, 4... I guess that Craft World Gate returned a Mighty Wraith Knight to hand, because at planet number 2, I'm just seeing a Viorla Marksman and a Mighty Wraith Knight, I guess I could be gravely mistaken. My sincerest apologies. There's a lot of simultaneous effects in this video to be keeping track of, but at the present moment, whichever player's opportunity is to deploy, Urien's either got to extend the duration of this game or just play out a complete onslaught of units to the first planet. Neither Eldar nor Dark Eldar has a lot of good area effect options, so things are just looking incredibly nasty here indeed. I did happen to see a copy of the Mighty Wraith Knight in our Eldar player's hand, so perhaps he is indeed just hanging on to that unit for subsequent deployment somewhere. But what exactly are we going to see? Looks like our players are doing an awful lot of considering. I can't quite tell how many resources they have. I could see Urien has at least 4 resources, if not 5, and I believe it's either 2 or perhaps 3+ resources for Baharroth. We see another copy of Siren Zithlex put out to the first planet. Looks like maybe... Okay, so we see a copy of Doom played out by our Eldar player, and that's going to be the Warlock Destructor and the Bloodied Reavers Destroyed. So those are both non-unique units. That was a little bit expensive, but you prevent yourself from having that Destructor and the in all likelihood, 4-2 Bloodied Reavers show up again, so Siren Zithlax by herself isn't going to be able to do too much against these units here, but we see a copy of the Bloodied Reavers touchdown on planet number 1. I believe that's kind of giving away Urien's hand. So what exactly are we going to see? We've got the Bloodied Reavers. Is Urien going to go to planet number 1? If Baharroth goes to planet number 1, those are all going to be 3-2 units. So we see Urien indeed goes to planet number 1. Baharroth is going to go to planet number 2, so he's going to be able to relocate himself to planet number 1 should he choose to do so. And that's the great part about mobile, is once the board gets this small, you can easily pin down the enemy warlords. So Baharroth is going to relocate himself there at the beginning of command, but that was going to be basically 1 card to the right for Baharroth. It's going to be a grand total of 3 cards to the right for Baharroth based on planet number 2, and planet number 3 is going to be a complete tie, but we did see that Archon's Palace exhaust. Whether it was depriving of cards or resources, I'm not quite sure, but it's going to be 3 different units that are each 3-2 attackers. Baharroth has the initiative token. He takes a swing at the Bloodied Reavers. Baharroth himself is a 2-6. Urien is a 2-6. We end up seeing, I think that was a copy of Searing Brand. I thought in my mind that was a 2-shield card, so I'm not sure what that was. Well, okay, so it must have been a Searing Brand, because the Bloodied Reaver survives with 1 hit point. So we see that copy of Baharroth's Hawks destroyed. Note that the ambush platform is still unexhausted. We could potentially see an ambush platformed ion rifle or any number of other attachments. We see that Baharroth's Hawks take a swing at Siren Zithlax. We see a Power from Pain discarded as shields, so that's only going to be 2 points of damage that the Siren herself takes. And we see a swing. The Baharroth's Hawks is destroyed, so things are getting a little bit grim now. Only Baharroth remains to attack, as does Urien. So Baharroth takes a swing. Do we have a 2-shield value card? Do we have a Suffering, a Searing Brand, anything like that? The Bloodied Reavers are outright destroyed by Baharroth. That is going to be another swing. Urien destroys that Baharroth's Hawks. This is very interesting indeed. If Urien happens to win this combat, that's going to be the game for him. Baharroth takes a swing at Siren Zithlax. Do we see a shield? We do not see a shield. That's going to be a destroyed unit there. Urien takes a swing. That's going to be 2 points of damage to Baharroth, unless we happen to see any shields there. Looks like our Eldar player is a little bit shaky in his hands. What are we going to see here? We have not seen the Crucible of Malediction exhausted, but we also haven't seen a Torture event played. So what are we going to see? I have no idea which of our players have cards in hand. Looks like that's maybe going to be a forfeit there. Our Baharroth playing player drops his hand. There was nothing he could do. Both of those warlords could have taken turns dealing out 2 points of damage to one another. Looks like both of them had depleted each and all of their shields. A lot of good stuff there in the Dark Eldar player's hand, but unfortunately not enough resource tokens to put out all those army units and no shield icon cards. But congratulations to Troels for a very well played game, and of course congratulations to Baharroth as well for some very unconventional but immensely entertaining play. So as always, thank you so much for watching yet another one of these fantastic commentated live action videos, and a very special thank you to my dear friend Alexander Chimadon for providing me with this footage again today. So thank you for making it this far, and as always, if you enjoyed this content, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already, or if you are already subscribed, you're always encouraged to share this content, as the more eyes there are on these videos, the more people there are that will subsequently stumble upon Conquest, the more players may end up giving this game a try, like what they experience, end up joining our community, and of course, we all continue to send the message to Fantasy Flight Games to continue to support this fantastic product. If at any point you'd like to get in touch with me, you're encouraged to do so through Twitter or on Facebook. Perhaps if you'd like me to spectate, commentate, and record a game of your own. And of course, if at any point you'd feel so inclined to send in some live action footage just like this video of your very own, I'd be absolutely honored to both commentate and host that footage for you. If at any point you'd feel so inclined to help me cover some of my file hosting and operating expenses, or perhaps contributing the digital equivalent of purchasing me a cup of coffee in donating perhaps $1 or $2 to me on a strictly monthly basis, I'd be absolutely honored and flattered were you to visit my Patreon. But once again, thank you so much for watching, and as always, be sure to check back in again soon for ever more Conquest LCG content to come.